Actor and musician Jared Leto is the latest celebrity in the spotlight for allegations of sexual misconduct. 9 women have accused the 53-year-old of predatory behavior, saying that his alleged bad acts were an open secret in Hollywood and beyond. All disturbing claims that he completely denies. So what kind of consequences could he face in a criminal or civil court, or the court of public opinion? We're breaking it all down for you right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. It all reportedly started with a throwback post on Instagram. DJ former model Allie Teals posted a screenshot of a Facebook status from back in 2012, which was 13 years ago, if you can actually believe that. Now, in that status, she'd written, "You're not really in LA until Jared Leto tries to force himself on you backstage at an M83 show in a kilt and a snow hat." She added the comment, "Throwback to 2012, Jared Leto was a creep then, still a creep now, going on 15 plus years of being Hollywood's most persistent predator in a kilt." Now, Jared Leto has been working in Hollywood since the 1990s, winning both an Oscar and a Golden Globe for his acting roles. He's also the frontman for the band 30 Seconds to Mars, which he formed in 1998 with his brother. The band is wrapping up its latest world tour next month in Portugal. So you know what happens next, right? Allie's post, as you can imagine, it sets off a firestorm of sorts. She started to share direct messages that she was getting from friends and acquaintances, all of whom said they too had allegedly been victimized by Leto personally or had friends who had. And one of the replies to the Instagram story reads, "Yeah, I was 16 in Arizona too when him and his brother invited me and my friend on his tour bus after a show." Then there's a monkey covering its face emoji. Another said, "OMG, my friend was fully groomed and she was abused at the hands of him for years and had to sign an NDA. A few more examples. "He hit on me at a concert when I was 15 and he was 30, got my number and invited me to a party, but my parents were aware and refused to let me go. Jared kicked me off of our first major tour because I reported him for engaging with underage fans in his tour bus. He used his power to crush this major dream come true, and he buried us. I'll never forget how deafening the backlash was. It was traumatic." And someone else reportedly sent a message saying that she was very surprised that Jared Leto wasn't named during the height of the Me Too movement. They wrote, "He is 1,000,000% a predator. In 2017, many of us assumed he would be called out during the #MeToo movement. I know several women who were underage when he slept with them, and several others who were subject to downright bleeped up circumstances at his whim. But somehow he dodged the movement. I've heard from sources I can't reveal that after 2017, his assistants hold his recruits in a blobby area of his home where they sign NDAs before he'll hang out with them. All very young-looking models. I understand that his weird band fan base defends him like K-pop fandom, but why does Hollywood keep hiring him? Literally everyone in this town knows what he's like." And these allegations, they were broadcast to an even wider audience when the news outlet Airmail published an article over the weekend titled "The Cult of Leto. He has acted in everything from American Psycho to House of Gucci. Now Jared Leto stands accused of impropriety by 9 women." Now, I have to be clear about something, okay? I want to say that at this point, Leto has denied all allegations of impropriety. He does not face any sort of criminal charges or other legal ramifications as of now. In response, by the way, to Allie's flurry of posts about his alleged behavior, his team said Ms. Teal's allegations are demonstrably false. But here's the question. Could Jared Leto's alleged crimes or misconduct, were they an open secret? Because as she shared the messages that she was getting from others who had alleged stories to tell about Leto, Allie also shared an old Onion headline from 2023 on her Instagram story that read, "Jared Leto asks if he ever's going to get into real trouble for that stuff he's been doing," adding a comment that the Onion, a satirical newspaper that posts fabricated stories, never misses, seeming to suggest that there had to be something there in the first place for the Onion to even write a fake article about it. And by the way, in 2015, I don't know if you remember this, James Gunn, the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy films, apparently posted a video on what was then called Twitter calling out Jared Leto for his alleged behavior. Now, the video was quickly taken down, but from reports from those who say that Gunn claimed Jared Leto sleeps with underage girls. And the next morning, Gunn posted on Instagram, Good morning to Bogota, Colombia, and sorry to all of you around the world who saw my Ambien-fueled Periscope session last night at 3 a.m. Yes, I erased it. So, I want to dig into what several women had to apparently say to Air Mail about Jared Leto, as well as reaction from his camp. And to do that, let me bring back on, here on Sidebar, friend of the show, criminal law attorney and former prosecutor, Melba Pearson. Melba, so good to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Great to see you, Jesse.
When you first saw these headlines, Jared Leto, sexual misconduct, seemingly allegations of sexual assault, what was your reaction?
Jesse, nothing surprises me anymore. Sadly, we're learning on a daily basis of the horrific behavior of many men in Hollywood, or whether it's the music industry, Hollywood, whatever the case may be, celebrities that have been engaging in bad behavior for decades and have never faced accountability. And it was an open secret and everybody kind of knew and all of that, but nobody actually came forward and reported anything. Nobody actually took action, either out of fear in terms of their careers or fear of getting sued, or, again, looking at someone posting a video talking about and calling him out for what he's done, and then the next minute the video's gone. That tells me there was some kind of pressure there to take it down, not because it was inaccurate, probably because it was accurate, and the Jared was in his camp were obviously afraid that more people having attention to this would mean more people coming forward and potentially either criminal charges or a civil lawsuit.
By the way, totally off topic, but very, very important. Can we talk about debt for a second? Debt doesn't just show up one day. It builds little by little. There's credit cards, car loans, medical bills. Suddenly, you're juggling all these payments. You're feeling stuck. Here's the good news. We got American Financing as our sponsor, and they help homeowners like you every day. They use your home's equity, and they roll that high-interest debt into one simple, affordable payment. They're saving homeowners an average of $800 a month. There's no judgment. There's no pressure, just real solutions that put you back in control. Imagine breathing again, sleeping again, knowing your future is yours to shape. It starts with one call, only takes 10 minutes to get started, and by the way, there's no upfront fees, so it costs you nothing to find out how much you can save. And if you start today, you may be able to delay your next two mortgage payments. American Financing salary-based consultants are ready to listen. They're ready to help. Take back your peace of mind with American Financing. Call American Financing today at 866-891-2821. That's 866-891-2821, or head over to americanfinancing.net/sidebar. At this point, if you were representing Jared Leto, what would you advise him to do and not do?
First of all, I'll tell him to stay his behind home. Just stop.
Don't go on living your life. Don't go on performing or living your life.
No, in terms of, yes, go to your gigs, do what you have contracted to do, but no parties. Kind of just stay under the radar for a few months. You don't need to be on the front page of every magazine or tabloid showing you at a party, because again, that opens up the opportunity for somebody to be like, oh, I was at that party and I saw XYZ. Maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't, but it opens up the possibility of more liability. So I'd say do what you're contracted to do, stay home, keep your mouth shut. Don't go out and start saying, this one's lying and this one's this, because again, that keeps the story in the headlines, number one. And number two, it sends the internet sleuths into a frenzy. So folks will be like, wait a minute, I'm going to see if this person's lying, and I'm going to start doing research to figure out whether or not I can tie you to this particular party, or I can tie you to this particular incident. Now, that ends up creating more evidence, which again would be the last thing that Leto's camp would want.
So the author of this article for Airmail, Elena Clavarino, says that she spoke to 9 women, most of whom chose to remain anonymous. And one of the unidentified women told Airmail that she first met Jared Leto in 2006 when she was 16. She was apparently at a cafe with her mother, who was outside waiting for a table, and she went inside to use the restroom. And she claims someone grabbed her arm, and when she looked down, it was reportedly Jared Leto sitting with Ashley Olsen, who he was rumored to be dating at the time. She told Airmail, "We had a quick conversation and he got my number." And then she claims that Jared Leto ended up calling her house in the middle of the night, saying that he was hosting a party at his house with his friend, nightlife promoter Brent Bolthouse. So he invited her to come, but she declined, telling Airmail, "I didn't even have a driver's license." She claims that Leto continued to call her over the next few weeks, always very late at night, and she says the conversations allegedly always took a sexual turn, with him wanting to know who she was dating and how experienced she was. Now, Melba, that's the problem, right? It's the apparent persistence that's really unsettling in terms of whether or not this would ever to make it in front of a jury, either a civil case or a criminal case. Is there a way to explain this in a less nefarious way?
No, quite frankly, because why are you calling a 16-year-old girl in the middle of the night? Why? There's no, if you're not her, even if you're a relative, you shouldn't be calling a 16-year-old girl at like 11 o'clock, midnight, 1 a.m. For what? And
is it
why
a crime? Is it a crime? Huh? That's a question. Is it a crime?
It's in and of itself, it's not a crime unless we're getting into the realm of stalking. Because let's say if she and her mom, because I don't know if she was the one who her mother overheard the conversations and kind of, cut things off. But regardless, if she or her mother or somebody said, stop calling, or I'm not interested, and he still kept persisting and calling and, making sexual comments, now you've gotten into the realm of stalking. Is there an argument to be made that, again, we're looking at grooming, child exploitation? Maybe, but I think it would be a huge stretch.
So the Airmail reports that the woman's mother confirmed the story, had overheard at least one of their phone calls. Does that put any responsibility on the mother?
Well, I mean, there's always responsibility on the mom, right? Just to make sure that you know where your child is, you know who your child is interacting with, and if you see something that's nefarious, getting involved. But the good thing is the mom does bolster the credibility of, what her daughter is saying. And it's not that her daughter misheard or misunderstood, or maybe she didn't grasp what was being said. The mom's like, no, I'm an adult. I've heard what was said. I know exactly what that word track means and what the intention is behind it. Now, of course, the argument could be made that the mom, that this is all a money grab. I'm not saying that that's the case, but the argument could be made that this is a money grab. And of course, the mom is going to substantiate her daughter so they can all get paid. But at the same token, when you're looking at so many young ladies saying the same exact story or very similar stories, when there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, one of the women who went on the record with Airmail, this model named Laura LaRue, she claims she was 16 when she says she met Jared Leto at an animal rights benefit in Beverly Hills in 2008. She claims Leto asked her age, and despite her saying 16 and her mother standing with her, he reportedly asked for her number. So really important in kind of a knowledge component if these allegations are true. And according to Airmail, her mom didn't really stop it because she thought knowing Jared Leto could help Laura's modeling career. Laura was apparently living in Ojai, this is northwest of LA, but often traveled into LA for work. And that's how she says she ended up visiting Jared Leto several times at his home, where he would allegedly tease her and flirt with her. She says at least once he allegedly walked around totally naked. Now, in a statement to Airmail, a spokesperson for Jared Leto said, their communications contain nothing sexual or inappropriate, and Mrs. LaRue later applied to work as Mr. Leto's personal assistant, further underscoring the absence of anything inappropriate in any of their interactions. But Laura told Airmail that she never applied to work as Leto's personal assistant. It's interesting, that statement, right? Because Melba, he's confirming they had communications. It's not like I have no idea who she is.
Exactly. And okay, maybe in text messages or emails, there's nothing sexually explicit. That doesn't mean that the oral communications, which may not have been taped or witnessed or anything like that, were inappropriate. Because again, remember, these types of crimes and scenarios generally happen one-on-one. You don't have a crowd witnessing that grooming of a child and that inappropriateness. It's usually the child being like, this is what happened to me. So again, I like the fact that they acknowledge the interaction, because again, that gives credibility to the fact, like, she knows exactly who he is and he knows exactly who she is. And this is not somebody who just came out of nowhere, again, trying to make a money grab, because that's always going to be the argument. This is a money grab. He doesn't know these people. They were all looking to him for some assistance and he wasn't able to help them. So now this is revenge or something along those lines. And this kind of starts to take away from that argument.
immediately knew who she was. 2008, right? This is so many years ago. What does that tell you?
There's something about her that was memorable. And maybe that, again, he was not able to get what he wanted. So this is one that stuck in his head. I don't know. But the fact that he was able to remember her so quickly, that's not good.
And even if she had applied to work for him, does that make any difference?
No, because again, she's a child. She's underage. So you have no business flirting with, being naked in front of, a child. And if she ended up applying later on, again, I believe she made a statement of, well, I just thought that's what adult men did. So she was very naive and not understanding that this was very problematic. And also, if she ends up going to work for him, was it at his insistence, right? Like in that scenario, let's say he was the one that was like, oh, hey, you should come work with me. I'll be able to help your career, et cetera, et cetera. She could present it to her mom like, hey, Jared Leto's going to help my career. It's going to be great. She goes and works for him. And then much like what we heard with R. Kelly and so many others, things go sideways.
Then you had another anonymous accuser said that she started texting with Jared Leto when she was underage, and that once she turned 18, his behavior allegedly became overtly sexual almost immediately. And Melba, if that allegation's true, this goes to the idea of, or the allegation of grooming, right? Starting out by building some sort of perceived relationship with an underage person, pushing things further and further and further over time. But again, if she turned 18, then things change, though. I mean, does this open up any kind of legal liability for him if things change once she became an adult?
Well, how that information would be used would be in terms of common plan or scheme to show that this, whatever happened maybe with a different survivor, wasn't a one-off. So let's say there's another 16-year-old girl who he fully victimized, right? And at that point, that particular plaintiff or, victim, survivor, could then say, hey, even though this person turned into having a relationship with him once she reached the age of consent, he was engaging with her beforehand, much like he did with me. So it starts to show a broader pattern, which can be very compelling in a criminal case as well as in a civil case.
The question becomes, with all of these allegations, and they're still fresh, they're new, there's not a ton of detail, what kind of consequences could Jared Leto be facing because of these allegations? Well, he currently stars in the latest iteration of the Tron movies, with Disney releasing a new film in October. He's also set to play Skeletor in a new Masters of the Universe movie. And as I mentioned, his world tour with 30 Seconds to Mars wraps up soon after more than a year of concerts. So if the allegations like these keep coming from people seeing his films or going to see his shows, it could have an impact, I would imagine, on his career down the road. Melba, what are the studio, what are the producers, what are the concert venues, what do they do in situations like this?
Well, I mean, we've seen it happen with other high-profile celebrities who have been accused of misconduct. They start to lose contracts. They start to, be cut out of movies and things like that. They may not get, certain venues may not want to work with them. So, it's my hope that he does start to feel those consequences, because that behavior cannot be tolerated. And basically moving forward is also going to open the studios up to liability, because if they know that he's a problem and they have underage girls on set, whether it be as actors, as, interns, whatever the case may be, and something happens to one of them, they knew his reputation beforehand. Everybody's on notice at this point. So I think you're going to start to see a distancing of the industry from him, at least until something is resolved. Either maybe this goes to court and it turns out he ends up being vindicated or something along those lines. But I think that he's going to see an impact in his pocketbook.
Now we got to talk about legal consequences, right? So things can get a little bit trickier. As far as we know, none of the women who spoke with Airmail have made any sort of official report to police. My understanding, the statute of limitations in LA for sex crimes is typically 10 years, but there are changes that have been made over the last few years that allow people who were victimized when they were children to have the opportunity to seek justice in the courts. There are certain parameters such as the age of the alleged victim now and at the time of the crime and when the alleged crime happened. But overall, it seems like these women would maybe have options if they decided to come forward, whether it's in the civil arena, maybe the criminal. Melba, do you think there's anything legally that he should be concerned about?
Oh, absolutely. Because again, noting that the statute of limitations may be an issue, again, if you were talking to an underage girl last year, guess what? You're well within the statute of limitations for criminal charges, depending on what happened during that transaction. And then, of course, as you noted, you have the Adult Survivors Act that could potentially come into play here. Again, there are a few factors that have to, fall into place, but that could be something that would give the survivors the opportunity to sue him in civil court and be able to get some accountability that way. So everything is pretty much on the table, again, depending on the time frame. So he has a lot to be concerned about.
These are just allegations. Let me say it again. These are just allegations at this point. But just brainstorming from a legal point of view, because we're covering the Diddy case, there are times when there could be a statute of limitations issue that you can't bring state criminal charges, but you could bring federal charges. So older claims that are transformed into some sort of federal charge, but that's extreme examples. And I have to say, at this point, based on these allegations, without further detail, I don't know if they would necessarily support a federal charge, but theoretically, if more details came forward, maybe. I know that's very, very nebulous, but that's something to be thinking about.
Yeah, I think it sounded from what I've read that a lot of this was concentrated within the state of California. And if that's the case, then it's less likely to be federal because we're not crossing state lines. Now, if he's using the internet to be able to bring people to LA or something like that, or, if he's texting people from another state and somehow bringing them to him, now that could open the door for a federal investigation and potentially charges. But, from what I'm reading so far, if everything is he met him in California and any of the contacts happen in California, I think it's less likely to see federal charges.
Well, here's what's interesting. I'm curious if you think authorities are now going to look into this, because how many times has it come from some sort of reporting or documentary or lawsuit? Have there been a criminal investigation? It's happened so many times in the past, whether it was Harvey Weinstein or R. Kelly or Sean Combs. And by the way, not saying that he's anywhere in the same category as those individuals, but just to make the point, reporting or some sort of documentary or a civil suit, there's something that can come forward that sparks a criminal investigation. Do you think authorities are looking into this now?
I hope they are. I think about how Trevor Noah actually joked about this, where he's like, if you want to see something investigated, put it in a Netflix documentary, right? And so that seemed to be like the pattern these days. A lot of times you're seeing a lot of these stories happening contemporaneously, surviving R. Kelly, all of that. And then, there's the prosecution and this and that. So I really do hope that authorities are looking into this, because even if they look into it and it turns out it's nothing, I'd rather them look into it and it turns out, okay, we can't move forward because we don't have enough here, rather than them not look into it and he's been a horrible predator harming multitudes of young girls and has been able to do so with impunity.
Well, I also imagine something to look out for, whether there's an investigation or not, is there is a strong possibility more people could come forward, right? So either two ways to look at it. If you are on one side that, oh my gosh, somebody spoke up, another person spoke up, now we can come forward, particularly if you're saying there's people closer in time, right? If he allegedly has been engaging in a pattern of this, then it didn't stop in 2023, right? Or 2024, he might have still been doing this, allegedly. The other way of looking at it, from his perspective, I imagine, if there are more allegations, it's a pile-on. Once somebody comes forward, then the floodgates are open. Anybody can come forward with false allegations against him for a payday or whatnot. In other words, to say, we shouldn't be surprised if the conversation continues about Jared Leto and more allegations come forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would expect more allegations to come forward because, again, much like we saw with the Diddy case and Cassie coming forward and how that opened the floodgates, I think it's the same type of situation here. It just takes one brave survivor to come forward and say, this happened to me. And now other people feel emboldened and feel empowered to come forward and speak their truth. Again, it lies on law enforcement, or if it's a civil situation, on the investigators working with the plaintiff's team to vet these survivors, vet their stories, look at whatever evidence that they may have, and do their due diligence so that, again, you're not bringing
Right.
forward a suit that's not based in facts and evidence.
Now, again, Jared Leto and his team have denied all allegations against him. At the time of this recording, there have been no charges filed against him. There has not been an announcement or an indication of any kind of criminal investigation into him, and he has not been sued at the time of this recording. But again, we're speculating about what could happen or theoretically could happen as a result of this. Melba Pearson, thank you so much for taking the time. It was great to see you.
Great to see you, Jesse.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.